and welcome to the Robertson radio show. Today I'm going to talk about Jerusalem. The reason is obviously Jerusalem has been on the news a lot recently with Trump's decision to recognise it as the capital of Israel. This is obviously a very difficult and controversial topic, but it's something I've thought about a great deal, but I would like to make clear that I don't have a horse in this race as such. I'm neither supportive 100% of the Jewish and Israeli position, nor am I supportive 100% of the Palestinian position. I'm very much, I would say, an impartial observer of the situation. I can see the argument from both sides, and it's certainly been a problem that's plagued the world since 1947. So today, really, I'm going to look at the solutions that are available to the situation. Then I'm going to look at Trump's decision and what that could lead to. And then finally, I'm going to sum up what hopefully would be the ideal solution at the end of all of this. I would like to make clear, though, that I do think that Trump's announcement and the way that he did it was very clumsy, and I think it's caused more problems than it's solved. Although, in one sense, he was right to highlight the fact that the status quo certainly hasn't led anywhere for decades and decades, and I don't think it ever will. So there does need to be some very radical change in the thinking how we approach this situation, but I do think the way that he's handled it has been extremely undiplomatic and really hasn't been particularly helpful.
It is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Okay, so first of all, let's listen to the part of the speech where Trump actually justifies his thinking and his rationale for making this decision.
Israel is a sovereign nation with the right, like every other sovereign nation, to determine its own capital. Acknowledging this is a fact is a necessary condition for achieving peace. It was 70 years ago that the United States under President Truman recognized the state of Israel. Ever since then, Israel has made its capital in the city of Jerusalem, the capital the Jewish people established in ancient times. Today, Jerusalem is the seat of the modern Israeli government. It is the home of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, as well as the Israeli Supreme Court. It is the location of the official residence of the Prime Minister and the President. It is the headquarters of many government ministries.
Is recognizing the reality on the ground, but also he's legitimizing, in a way, the changes that have happened demographically and politically on the ground against the wishes of the international community and the UN. And if you take a look at this map, it really shows how Israel has expanded into Palestinian territories. And the reality he does mention is true. It's definitely, on a purely factual basis, Jerusalem is the de facto capital of the region and of Israel. But the reason why that status quo exists is partly the 1967 war, as we know, but also increased settlement building and things like that.
After more than 2 decades of waivers, we are no closer to a lasting peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. It would be folly to assume that repeating the exact same formula would now produce a different or better result.
I think the part of the speech which is much more important for the peace process and the situation is this part where he's acknowledging the fact that all of the negotiations and developments up till now have not worked. And he's signalling that really he wants to separate from that and start a completely new process. And I think that's much more significant than purely the Jerusalem move. I think this symbolizes the fact that the two-state solution is dead.
The United States would support a two-state solution if agreed to by both sides. In the meantime, I call on all parties to maintain the status quo at Jerusalem's holy sites, including the Temple Mount, also known as Haram al-Sharif.
And to further back that up, just need to listen to the language he uses. He would support if. In other words, he's blatantly stating that this is not going to happen. He's not going to support this two-state solution because there's no way that Israel, if it doesn't have to, is going to support that solution. And he's clearly made it clear that only if both parties agree to that, then that would be something to move forward on, and that's not going to happen. So on a basic level, that means the two-state solution is dead, and I think that's far more significant than anything else that was said in this particular speech. I think what really it shows is that the way forward from here, as far as the US and Israel is concerned, is a one-state solution, and that'll be Israel being the one state. Again, it's interesting to note that he refers to the state of Israel. He says Israel and the Palestinians. He doesn't say Israel and Palestine. He doesn't say the Israelis and Palestinians. He says Israel and the Palestinians. So by saying Israel, he's talking about a state. And by saying Palestinians, he's talking about a people. And I think that's very significant language as well, which shows exactly what he wants, and that is what Israel wants, and that is that the Palestinian people will live within the confines of a single Israeli state.
When I came into office, I promised to look at the world's challenges with open eyes and very fresh thinking. We cannot solve our problems by making the same failed assumptions and repeating the same failed strategies of the past. Old challenges demand new approaches. My announcement today marks the beginning of a new approach to conflict between Israel and the Palestinians.
Now, everyone has been concentrating on his statement to say that basically he's moved the capital, according to the US anyway, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And that's really what everyone's concentrating on in the Muslim world, and it's what everyone's concentrating on in the media. But actually, that's the lesser of the points of his actual speech. The main thing that I took from his speech was the way that he approached the two-state solution. And effectively, he made it quite clear, really, that the two-state solution is finished and that there's only a one-state solution. Now, that for me is the most fundamental thing that he said. And in a way, I can see someone coming to that conclusion that the two-state solution is not viable because, for example, if you had two states living side by side, it wouldn't be like Liechtenstein and Monaco are two micro-states that can survive independently because for several reasons. One is the vast population increases of both communities. Secondly, you have the huge religious and historical animosity between the communities. A lot of historical bloodshed has been spilt, and the way that the religious views are in some ways incompatible with each other. These are things that other microstates don't suffer from. And then finally, there's a massive amount of external interference by both, on one side, the entire Muslim world, and on the other side, the Jewish diaspora, and certainly the Christian Zionists in the US. So really, and also the guilt that Europe feels towards the Jews in Israel because of the Holocaust and things like that. So there's far too much external interference to allow two states to live side by side like that. So that is a problem. But then you see, if we look at the solutions that we have, all the solutions seem really impossible. If you have one solution, which would be that the Palestinians push the Israelis into the sea and take all the land for themselves. Obviously, that's not going to happen with the Jewish diaspora, control of the media, with the American Zionism, with European guilt complex from World War II, from all of these other things. It would cause an enormous war, basically, in the region and around the world. The other solution is that Israel pushes the Palestinians into the sea. And equally, that wouldn't work because it would unite the entire Muslim world against Israel, and it would spark exactly the same war that I was talking about just now. The other solution is the two-state solution, which I don't think it's been shown it can't work. There's no progress on that, and I think we have to move away from that. So that leaves only the one-state solution. Now, in an ideal world, for me, I would wish for a land called the Holy Land, which would neither be Israeli or Palestinian, Muslim or Jewish or Christian. It would be an area where all the Abrahamic faiths could live together, where political parties based on religious identity would not be allowed. You could join a party based on your socialist or your capitalist or your humanist beliefs or whatever. And each party hopefully would attract people from all different communities based on their political policies rather than the religious private beliefs. And you could call this the Holy Land as such. And it would be a very beneficial thing for humanity to see the Abrahamic religions come together and share such an important place. Unfortunately, I don't think either the Israelis or the Palestinians will accept that. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But that would be, in an ideal world, that would be the only fully workable solution. I think Trump might have actually played a blinder had he done it more diplomatically, because, as I mentioned before, the two-state solution really hasn't worked. And if you're looking at a one-state solution and you can't do the Holy Land model, which is the one that I would prefer, but it's not my business, but that's the one that I think would work best, then let's imagine if Trump had said, right, okay, we did a one-state solution. If he'd have offered something, then maybe there'd have been something there, some progress, because I have noticed even Fatah and PLO, not so much Hamas, but the PLO have indicated that actually they can see the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground with the shrinking of Palestinian territories, that the two-state solution is probably not viable. And much as that hurts them, they are coming to the conclusion that the one-state solution is perhaps the only solution. So, you know, if Trump and the American administration had talked to the Palestinians, had they discussed this with the Israelis, the Palestinians, various other interested parties around the world, they may have able to be in a position to offer something, to offer some big compromise that might have actually brought the Palestinians on board to try a new method. But they didn't. They just unilaterally went ahead and said it without any plan B, without any idea. I mean, you had Tillerson saying, oh, we have a solution that could solve this problem overnight in one sweeping go. Well, there's no information on that. At least have this on the table before you make such a huge unilateral move. I mean, if you were to promise Palestinians full and equal rights, if you were to promise them, just like any other citizen, that they could travel freely from place to place, there would be no discrimination based on race or religion, and they'd all enjoy every right and freedom that Israelis can enjoy in that Holy Land, then maybe, just maybe, and if you guaranteed that the eternal use of the extremely important Al-Aqsa Mosque at Al-Quds, then again you could offer all of these things on the table. You could put them down and make them absolutely concrete. There may be a chance that Palestinians would be willing to compromise too. And so even though this wouldn't be an ideal situation and both sides would not be happy, there's a chance. But because of the clumsy way that Trump does diplomacy, then obviously this chance could have been squandered, and that's a big tragedy, really. what I did find interesting as well is in the Muslim world, really it's only been Turkey and Iran that have really made an issue, and obviously in Lebanon with Hezbollah, which are linked to Iran. But a lot of the Arab world has remained silent on this, which is interesting because it seems to me the Europeans are more concerned than some of the Gulf states about this issue. And so there's lots of questions to ask there. Anyway, so I do hope that some compromise can be found. And I think now, even though the mistakes have been made, and I don't support Trump's unilateral move before, at least he had something to offer on the table. We are where we are. And I can only hope that somehow, very quickly, the American administration, rather than doubling down, can actually put something on the table, can start offering some benefits or some compromises to the Palestinians to try and make the situation less volatile. But we will see. I'm not particularly hopeful, but we certainly do live in interesting times. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this short show. That was just my ideas on the topic. And again, I'm not influenced by any religious zeal or political ideology. I'm just looking at it as an impartial observer, and I can see the rights and wrongs of both communities, really. So I'm not picking sides in this, but obviously the status quo can't continue because Palestinians in Gaza are living under awful conditions, and that has to come to an end somehow, in a way that's beneficial for all. But the sooner the better, because it is a stain on humanity to have people living under those conditions, I think. Anyway, so that's the show today, a bit of a short one, and I'll post another show next week.